The city of Kingston is a great place to visit and a wonderful place to live. However, like many of our cities and our communities, they do have their issues with racism, discrimination, and exclusion. The good news is that there's a small contingent of people within the city of Kingston who are trying to do something about this, who are trying to rectify these issues with the Say Hello campaign.
Kingston is an amazing community. The quality of life is really good here, but the reality is that not everybody feels welcome and included into our community. We interview leaders in our community. We did focus group with the community, and we did a community-wide survey. A survey that was responded by over 600 residents, wow, which is a huge number for a community like Kingston. And that gave us a good picture of their situation and how people were feeling in our community in terms of racism and discrimination. At the same time, we got an idea through comments on what we should do with the campaign. As a community, the community as a whole, we needed to publicly recognize that there is a problem. Because sometimes in community there are problems, but nobody talks about that. Mm-hmm. So when you publicly recognize that there is a problem, you empower people to express. And that's where we sent a call for community participation, asking residents if we want to hear from you, your stories about racism and discrimination. Many people responded to the request, and we choose 5 of them.
Me and a friend were telling him to calm down and stuff, and that's when he called me the N-word.
Being asked, where are you from? I guess the impact on me is that I continually feel like I'm a stranger.
Why are you coming here? We are not paying taxes for you.
He told me to go back to my country, and then he proceeded to shove me, and he just kept yelling.
So basically for the Say Hello campaign, I was approached as a person of color living in Kingston. I'm involved with a blog called Keep Up with Kingston, so that kind of gets me more exposure in terms of the different people I get to talk to. So in this instance, somebody from the City of Kingston and Kingston Immigration Partnership identified me as somebody that they want to share their story about my experience with racism and my experience living in Kingston. I mean, I think it's a thing anywhere. I think that you go to any city and it's an issue. I mean, even when I lived in Toronto, I had a man on the subway call me an N-word one time, around a bunch of people. He screamed it and pointed his finger, and that was downtown Toronto, getting off, at Yonge and wherever, Queen Street or something. So I don't think it's necessarily a Kingston problem. It's an everywhere problem. I think it's just something that Canadians or anybody who's living in a multicultural city needs to be aware of. The problem is that our scale of minorities is just so much smaller here that these things get hidden away because the voices are so small in numbers. I want Kingston to become more diverse and more multicultural, and I need to just suck it up and lean into the experience, and so here I am.
My biggest story in terms of racism is this video I have from my 5th birthday party or 4th birthday party.
I chose my narrative to be more about representing women of color who are professional and are doing well in the community, to fight those stereotypes that I had to deal with a lot when I was a kid.
My mom's saying, how'd you like being 4? I was like, well, it was really boring. She's like, well, why? I was like, well, no one wanted to play with me because I was only brown. And so my mom gets really upset, and she's like, well, you're not gonna let that stop you, are you? And I'm like, well, no. And it's this really sad moment, and the camera stops.
I don't want another young girl of color being told that she's articulate or people being surprised by how educated she is. I don't want anyone else to experience that.
When I look back, it's those kids obviously learned that from somebody.
I think just bringing awareness to the fact that this still exists. I mean, especially what's happening in the States right now. People think it's an American problem with racism, and it's not. It's definitely something that happens in places like Kingston, Ontario, where people are generally very sweet and kind, and so everyone in Kingston is like, we're wonderful, and we are wonderful. There are great people who live here. But I think it's just naive to think that this doesn't happen. And one of my biggest pet peeves is like, I don't see race, because race is race, and I think to be able to say that, people need to check how privileged they are to not see race, because this is like something that happens. There are people who are minorities who have to face little microaggressions or sometimes bigger issues every day that are being told through this campaign, and it kind of makes people face that instead of having the ignorance of just saying, oh, I don't have to deal with that ever, so it just doesn't exist.
It's good that as a white person to just speak up and say, you know what, that's not okay. And it's just like, if you know something's wrong, even if you're not representative of that group who's being impacted, it's just standing up and saying something. So it's not always the person of color saying, that was a really bad idea.